I brought Owen to my parents' estate on a Saturday afternoon in June. The driveway alone was longer than the street he grew up on. I watched his face as we pulled up to the house, seeing it through his eyes for the first time. The fountain in the circular drive. The columns on the front porch. The manicured garden stretch, as far as you could see. "This is where you grew up?" he asked quietly. I nodded, suddenly ashamed. My mother, Regina, answered the door herself. She looked Owen up and down before he could even extend his hand. Her eyes lingered on his work boots, his simple button-down shirt, the calluses on his palms. "A plumber," she said, her voice cold as winter. She didn't even look at him when she spoke. She looked only at me. "Natalie, he is not our kind. This ends now." Owen stood there with his hand still halfway extended, frozen in the most awkward moment of his life. My father, Gerald, appeared behind my mother, took one look at the scene, and retreated to his study without a word. That's how my father handled conflict. He disappeared. My mother gestured for me to follow her inside, not even acknowledging Owen's presence. I squeezed Owen's hand quickly before stepping through the door. In the formal living room, surrounded by antique furniture and oil paintings of ancestors I'd never met, my mother delivered her ultimatum. "End this infatuation," she said, sitting perfectly straight on the velvet sofa. "Or you are no longer part of this family. The trust fund, the connections, the support, all of it ends." I thought of Owen waiting outside. I thought of the life we'd been planning. "He's a good man," I said weakly. My mother's laugh was sharp. "Good is not enough." I found Owen sitting in his truck, staring straight ahead. He looked defeated in a way I'd never seen before. Not when his business had struggled last winter. Not when his father was sick. This was different. This was personal. I climbed into the passenger seat and took both his hands in mine. They were rough, warm, and familiar. "I choose you," I said firmly. "I choose us." The relief that flooded his face made my heart ache. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Because that's a lot to give up, Natalie." I looked back at the house where I'd spent 26 years of my life. Every birthday, every Christmas, every family dinner. My mother stood in the window, watching us with her arms crossed. I turned away. "I'm sure," I said. As we drove away, I watched my childhood home disappear in the rearview mirror, getting smaller and smaller until it vanished completely. For 3 days, I heard nothing from my family. No calls, no texts, nothing. It was like I'd died. On the 4th day, my phone buzzed with a notification. A bank transfer. $5,000 from my father's personal account, not the family one. The message attached was short. "For emergencies. Don't tell your mother." I stared at the message for a long time.
Part of me wanted to send it back.
Owen and I were building something real, something honest. We didn't need my father's guilt money. But the practical part of me, the part that was learning to budget and check price tags, knew we might need it. I showed Owen the message. He read it twice, then looked at me. "What do you want to do?" he asked. I transferred the money to our savings account and didn't reply to my father's text. Owen's apartment was above his plumbing shop in the older part of town. It was small, just 3 rooms, but the windows let in beautiful morning light. The walls were thin enough that we could hear Mr. Patterson's television from next door. The kitchen was barely big enough for 2 people. And I loved it. For the first time in my life, I wasn't living in someone else's space with someone else's rules. This was ours. The smell of Owen's workshop drifted up sometimes, a mix of metal and pipe compound. I learned to do laundry at the Coin Place 2 blocks over. I learned to cook on a stove that only had 3 working burners. I learned that happiness didn't require a big house or expensive things. It just required someone who looked at you like Owen looked at me. My younger sister, Melody, called me one afternoon while I was unpacking boxes. She was crying before she even said hello. "Mom made me call you," she sobbed. "She wants me to convince you to come home." I sat down on the edge of our second-hand couch. "Mel, I am home," I said gently. She cried harder. "She's telling everyone at the club that you're traveling in Europe. She said you needed to find herself before settling down. She won't even say your name at dinner." That hurt more than I expected. being erased, being rewritten into a more acceptable story. I'm sorry she's putting you in the middle, I told Melody. But I'm not coming back. I love him. There was a long pause. Is he really worth it? She whispered. I looked at Owen through the doorway, assembling our new bookshelf with careful precision. Yeah, I said. He really is. My grandmother was the only person from my family I wanted to see. Grandma Iris lived in a brownstone in the city, independent and sharp as ever at 79. She'd never liked my mother's pretentious ways. I visited her on a Thursday, nervous about what she'd think. She opened the door, took one look at my face, and pulled me into a hug. Tell me about him, she said over tea in her sunny breakfast nook. I told her everything. How we'd met when my sink broke in my first apartment. How he'd made me laugh while fixing my garbage disposal. How he was kind and patient and worked harder than anyone I knew. Grandma Iris listened to it all, then smiled. Your young man has good, strong hands, she said. I can tell by the way you describe his work. I like him already. She reached across the table. I'll help with the wedding, dear. Don't you worry. I started noticing things about Owen that didn't quite add up. Little things at first. He'd come home from jobs sometimes and spend hours in the back room of a shop, the one he kept locked. Just paperwork, he'd say when I asked. But I'd seen the way his face changed when he worked on that door, like he was protecting something precious. One evening, I caught him sketching at the kitchen table. Not plumbing diagrams or job estimates. These were beautiful, intricate designs. Flowing lines and geometric patterns that looked almost like art. What's that? I asked, looking over his shoulder. He closed the notebook quickly, but not before I saw the complexity of the drawing. Just a side project, he said with a smile. Nothing important. But the way he said it made me think it was very important. I didn't push. Everyone had their secrets. The money from my father ran out faster than I expected. Rent, groceries, utilities, everything added up. I'd never paid bills before. I'd never even looked at a price tag, really. My mother's credit card had covered everything. Now I understand why people clipped coupons. I got a job at a coffee shop downtown called Brewed Awakening. The manager, Rita, hired me on the spot despite my complete lack of experience. You'll learn, she said with a shrug. And I did. I learned to make lattes and cappuccinos. I learned to smile at rude customers. I learned that standing for 8 hours made your feet ache in ways you didn't know were possible. My hands blistered from the steam wand. My back hurts every night. But when I brought home my first paycheck, tiny as it was, I felt prouder than I'd ever felt spending my mother's money. One morning, I was delivering an order to a gallery in the Arts District. It was one of those fancy places with white walls and track lighting, the kind my mother used to drag me to for charity events. I was carrying a tray of coffees when something caught my eye. A sculpture near the back wall, spotlit like a treasure. It was made of metal, but it looked alive. Flowing and organic, like water frozen mid-splash. The design was intricate, almost impossibly complex. I walked closer, forgetting about the coffees getting cold in my hands. The price tag was displayed on a small placard, $180,000. My mouth fell open. Who paid that much for a sculpture? I looked at the artist's name. The signature was unusual, stylized. It read, O.W. Sterling. Something about that name tickled the back of my mind, but I couldn't place it. That night, I was looking for a screwdriver in Owen's workshop. He'd gone to grab us dinner, and I wanted to hang a picture frame in our bedroom. The back room was unlocked for once. I didn't mean to snoop. I really didn't. But when I saw the open door, curiosity got the better of me. Inside were workbenches covered with metal sculptures in various stages of completion. They were beautiful, complex, and they looked exactly like the one I'd seen at the gallery. On the wall was a magazine article, framed. O.W. Sterling, the voice of modern metal. The photo showed an artist from behind, welding something intricate. I couldn't see his face, but I saw his hands. Those hands with a small scar on the left thumb from a childhood accident. Owen's hands. Owen's scar. O.W. Sterling was Owen. When Owen came home with Chinese takeout, I was sitting at the kitchen table with a magazine in front of me.
He stopped dead when he saw it.
For a moment, neither of us said anything. Then he set down the food and sat across from me. I was going to tell you, he said quietly. I didn't know what to feel. Angry?
Confused?
Amazed? You're O.W. Sterling, I said. It wasn't a question. He nodded. I started the plumbing business to stay grounded, to have a normal life. But sculpture is what I love, what I've always loved. He reached across the table. I kept it a secret because I was tired of people seeing the money and fame first. When I met you, you thought I was just a plumber. You loved me anyway. You chose me over your family when you thought I had nothing. His eyes were intense. You loved the plumber, Natalie, not the artist. I couldn't keep this from Grandma Iris. The next day, I went to her brownstone and told her everything. Owen's sculptures, his secret career, the fact that his work sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. I expected her to be shocked. Instead, she laughed. Oh, sweetheart, she said, eyes twinkling with mischief. I knew who he was the moment you described his work to me. My jaw dropped. You knew? She nodded, pouring more tea. I recognized the description of his designs. O.W. Sterling is one of the most talented metal artists working today. I've been trying to commission a piece from him for 3 years, but he's very selective. She smiled. Your mother's going to lose her mind when she finds out. That's when the ideas started forming. A plan. A way to show my mother exactly how wrong she'd been. Owen and I sat down that night and talked for hours. About the secret, about our future, about what we wanted our wedding to be. I don't want your money, I told him firmly. That's not why I'm with you. He took my hands. I know, he said. But we can use it to build the life we want. The wedding we want. And maybe to make a point to your family. That's when he got a gleam in his eye. What if we kept my identity secret a little longer? Just until the wedding. I understood immediately. The wedding invitation would be our reveal. We design it ourselves, put Owen's artist signature on it, and send it to my parents. Let them figure it out. With Grandma Iris's financial backing and Owen's resources, we started planning the kind of wedding we actually wanted. Not the society's spectacle my mother would have demanded. Something real. We worked on the invitations together in Owen's studio, surrounded by his half-finished sculptures. I'd never seen him so focused. He sketched design after design until he found something perfect. The invitation itself would be simple. Elegant cream cardstock with our names and wedding details in classic typeface. But the envelope would be special. Owen designed a custom wax seal to close it. The seal bore his artist signature, that distinctive O.W. Sterling mark that appeared on all his work. It was subtle. Someone would have to know his work to recognize it. Someone like an art collector. Someone like my mother, who'd spent decades buying and selling fine art. She's going to see this and know exactly who you are, I said, watching Owen test the seal. He grinned. That's the point. We mailed the invitation to my parents on a Tuesday morning. The envelope was thick, expensive. The kind of invitation my mother would respect. I imagined her receiving it, turning it over in her hands, noticing the weight of the paper. I imagined her breaking the wax seal, seeing that O.W. Sterling's signature pressed into the burgundy wax. The invitation itself gave nothing away. Just our names, the date, the location. But that seal would tell her everything. Owen held my hand as we dropped it in the mailbox. Last chance to back out, he said with a slight smile. I pushed the envelope through the slot. No backing out, I said. Let's see what happens. We gave it 3 days. 3 days for the mail to deliver, for my mother to open it, for the realization to hit. On the 3rd day, my phone rang. It was my father calling. His voice sounded strange, high-pitched and shaky. Natalie, he said. We received your wedding invitation. I waited, my heart pounding. Owen sat beside me on the couch, close enough to hear. The seal on the envelope, my father continued. That's the O.W. Sterling signature. Your mother noticed it immediately. She collects contemporary sculpture. She'd know that mark anywhere. He paused. I could hear my mother shouting something in the background. Is this a joke? My father asked. Is your fiancé really O.W. Sterling? I took a deep breath. His name is Owen Walter Sterling, I said clearly. He goes by O.W. Sterling professionally. He's a sculptor. And yes, he's also a plumber. He's both. The phone went silent except for my mother's voice getting louder. Then she was on the line, and her tone was completely different. Darling, my mother said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. We'd love to attend your wedding. In fact, we absolutely insist on hosting the rehearsal dinner. I felt Owen tense beside me. This was the woman who'd called him not our kind, who'd refused to shake his hand, who'd threatened to disown me. Now she was darling again. We'll need to discuss the guest list, my mother continued, talking faster. The Sterling name carries significant weight in the art world. We'll want to invite the Hendersons, they're major collectors. And the museum board, of course. This will be the event of the season. She hadn't asked how I was, hadn't apologized. Just immediately started planning the wedding she wanted, now that Owen was acceptable. Mom, I said quietly. No. She stopped mid-sentence. Excuse me, she said. Your guests, I told her. Nothing more. They showed up at our apartment 2 days later, unannounced. I was washing dishes when I heard the knock. Through the peephole, I saw my mother and father standing in our narrow hallway, looking completely out of place. My mother's designer heels were too fancy for our worn carpet. I opened the door, but didn't invite them in. My mother tried to hug me. I stepped back. Her eyes immediately started scanning our small apartment, looking for signs of wealth, looking for proof that Owen was who he said he was. When she saw Owen emerge from the back room, her expression changed completely. Not disdain anymore. Something hungrier. Calculating. Owen, she said warmly, as if they were old friends. We're so sorry for the misunderstanding at our first meeting. We'd love to get to know you better. Owen stood beside me, solid and calm. You disrespected your daughter, he said evenly. And you disrespected me when you thought I was just a plumber. My mother opened her mouth, but Owen wasn't finished. You're welcome at our wedding as guests, he continued. You can sit wherever we assign you. You can eat the food we choose. But that's all. This is our day, not yours. My father had the grace to look ashamed. My mother's face went through about 5 different emotions before settling on a tight smile. Of course, she said stiffly. Whatever you prefer. After they left, I collapsed on the couch. Owen sat beside me and pulled me close. That was hard, he said. I nodded against his chest. She still doesn't get it, I said. She's not sorry she judged you. She's just sorry she was wrong about your bank account. Owen kissed the top of my head. I know, he said. But we don't need her to understand. We just need her to respect our boundaries. The news leaked somehow. Maybe my mother told someone at her club. Maybe my father mentioned it at work. However it happened, a reporter from the society pages got wind of the story. The article appeared on a Wednesday morning. Society heiress Natalie Hartwick to wed acclaimed sculptor O.W. Sterling, read the headline. It detailed my family's background, Owen's rising status in the art world, and enough details about our romance to make me cringe. My phone started buzzing immediately. Text messages from people I hadn't heard from in months. Old friends from college. Distant cousins. Everyone suddenly wanted to congratulate me. Melody called, laughing. Mom's phone has been ringing off the hook, she said. All the people who she told you were traveling? They're calling to say they saw the article. I almost felt bad for my mother. Almost. But then I remembered her face when she'd looked at Owen that first day. The wedding day arrived faster than I expected. We'd chosen a botanical garden on the edge of the city. The ceremony was outdoors, surrounded by roses and jasmine. The morning was perfect. Clear sky, light breeze, not too hot. Grandma Iris helped me into my dress, a simple silk gown that I'd chosen myself. You look beautiful, dear, she said, adjusting my veil. Are you ready? I nodded. Who's walking you down the aisle? She asked. I took her hand. You are, if you'll do it. her eyes filled with tears. I'd be honored. We walked down the aisle together, past rows of Owen's artist friends, my real friends, people who'd supported us. My parents sat in the third row. Not the front. The third. They looked uncomfortable, surrounded by people in paint-stained blazers and artistic scarves. Owen stood at the altar in a simple black suit, looking at me like I was the only person in the world. The reception was held in the garden's pavilion, strung with lights and decorated with some of Owen's smaller sculptures. Dinner was served. Toasts were made. Owen's best friend, a welder named Tony, told embarrassing stories that made everyone laugh. Then my father stood up. The room got quiet. My father cleared his throat and gave a speech about family and tradition and the importance of finding the right partner. He tried, awkwardly, to take credit for our happiness. "We always knew Natalie would find someone special," he said, which was such a blatant lie I almost laughed. When he sat down, the applause was polite but scattered. Then Owen stood. He didn't have notes. He just looked at me and spoke from the heart. "Natalie chose me when she thought I had nothing," he said simply. "She chose love over money. She chose character over status. She chose to see the person, not the pedigree." He glanced at my parents. "That's real love. That's what matters." The room erupted in genuine applause. A year later, Owen and I were sitting in our new house, a beautiful craftsman we'd bought in a quiet neighborhood. It had a yard for the dog we'd adopted and a big garage that Owen had converted into a proper studio. I was 5 months pregnant, my hand resting on the curve of my belly. We'd hosted Thanksgiving the week before. Grandma Iris came, of course. Melody came with her new boyfriend, a teacher she'd met at a charity event. Even my parents came, though they stayed for only 2 hours and left before dessert. They sent expensive gifts for the baby. A designer crib, a trust fund, things they could control. But they didn't visit often, didn't call much. The distance between us was permanent now, a gap they'd created and I had no interest in closing. Owen's sculpture career was thriving. My coffee shop had promoted me to manager. We were building a life on our own terms. The final lesson came at a family gathering at Grandma Iris's brownstone. It was supposed to be a casual dinner, but my mother couldn't help herself. She looked around at our lives, at the way Owen and I lived, and made one of her comments. "It's all very bohemian," she said, her tone making it clear she didn't mean it as a compliment. "Not what I imagined for you, Natalie." I looked at Owen, at our daughter sleeping in his arms, at Grandma Iris smiling from across the room. Then I looked at my mother. "Our kind is the kind that loves unconditionally," I said quietly. "It's the kind that sees people for who they are, not what they have. It's the only kind that matters." My mother opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. For the first time in my life, she had no reply. The silence stretched between us, and I realized I didn't need her approval anymore. I never had. Owen reached for my hand under the table and squeezed it. That was all the approval I needed.